Sweet. All right, I'm gonna start recording. All right, this is, I don't even know what number it is, but this is the weekly think tank meeting that we do in the Qortal community every week to give people a chance to come in, ask us questions, talk with developers, and get an overall idea of what is going on in the Qortal community. We also publish recordings of this, which now, as of yesterday and our amazing new releases, we are able to publish these on Qblog, and very soon they will also show up on QTube, which is another Q app that is in development, almost ready to be published. So we can give people another idea of what a Q app can look like. I've been getting some questions from people regarding the source code for the existing Q app. So you can grab the source code for any website or Q app by going into your Qortal data folder. Now, not the DB folder, the data folder. And inside of that folder, there's a folder called underscore temp. That underscore temp folder is the folder that is used for building everything that you view inside of Qortal. Now, remember that everything on Qortal, on QDN, is encrypted and chunked, right? So the data is all just basically nonsense until you click to view it, right? And then once you click to view it, it gets built and displayed to you. So the folder in which that takes place is the underscore temp folder inside of the data folder. So if you want to find the source code for anything that you see on QDN, whether it's a website or a Q app, you can go to that underscore temp folder, and inside of there you'll see a bunch of different folders. You find one with the name, and you can see which name it is, and you can go there and you can see the source code for anything that you have already built on that node, right? Now, one thing is that the source for qblog is minified, so it's difficult to read and so forth when you grab it in that fashion. So what I'm going to do is have Philip actually make the source code available. And we don't have a Git repo on every name yet. You know that that's something that's coming in the future as well, right? So that will be available in the future. We'll have a Git repo, and so every single name will be able to have the source code in the same format as you see on GitHub and GitLab, so you can actually see the commits and version control and all kinds of things, right? So that will actually be on every name, and then we'll start putting the source code up in that fashion. But until then, I have asked that Philip take the source code for Qblog and publish it on Qblog as a downloadable zip. And so the functionality for publishing files on Qblog will be coming in the very near future. And once that happens, I will have him publish it in a zip format so that people can grab that source code and see exactly how it was built, right? Because being able to see a demo of exactly how the Q app was built will make it so that, other developers will be able to come in, build their own Q apps easily, and so forth, right? So that is something that I'm definitely going to make sure that takes place as soon as possible. So then we can say, new developer coming in, here you go, check this source code out. Because, we don't have right now a bunch of really in depth developer documentation quite yet, right? So we do have the Q apps documentation page that goes over the basic functionality and what is possible and so forth. But we do not have like a full developer documentation like wiki or anything like that yet, right? So we actually build things first and then we start writing the documentation for it. So we will in the future have really in-depth developer documentation, and I'm going to kind of start that process and start writing something like that here as soon as possible. But right now we've got, a lot going on. So our developers are extremely busy. We have countless things on the developer list, so much so that it's hard to even keep track of like a project management tool, because we get so many new ideas all the time. We basically have to have that up on the screen all the time and be adding to it. So we're not doing a great job of keeping track on the project management side, which we probably need to do a little bit better job of that, and that's my fault most likely. So but we are doing so many things, guys. The development on this project is incredible. We have some of the best developers, and I am always appreciative of their work. And if anyone else is, you guys make sure you either send a donation to Dev Fund, which is Dev Fund with a capital D and a capital F, or you can literally send directly to the developers who do the work. That's fine too. We are completely run by way of donation. So remember that when you guys are loving everything that's coming out from the Qortal development team, and show some love to the developers. So yeah, yesterday was a huge day for the platform. Someone has a lot of background noise. Who is that? Uh, I gotta figure out who that is. Okay, there we go. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, whoever that was had a lot of background noise. So yeah, yesterday was a really big day for the platform, as we all should be aware of by now. We have launched the initial iteration of Q apps, which is absolutely huge, in my opinion. Again, someone with background noise, if you could mute yourself, I'd appreciate it. You got an echo going on. If you want to talk, that's fine. You can unmute yourself, but until then, please keep yourself muted, because we don't want to hear all the background noise in the recording, especially. So, thank you. So yeah, guys, yesterday was a really huge day for the platform. We launched what I consider basically the primary functionality of Qortal, which is huge. We can now allow any developer to come in and build a Q app with whatever functionality they like, with the available functionality from the Q apps documentation page, which you can look over, and they can, start building their future on Qortal. And I have a couple different larger interviews that I'm planning here in the near future. So we already know about James Corbett and we already know about Ernest Hancock, right? So those two I'm going to get back on with. I know that Ernest is very keen on getting his basically everything, all of his stuff and his entire community to start using Qortal. And now that we have Qblog, we can actually demonstrate some of, like, basically a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the functionality that Qortal can actually provide, right? Because up until yesterday, we had just literally been building the infrastructure, which people don't quite understand, fully what that means, right? So now what we can do is say, look, we were building this infrastructure for so long, and now look, we've built an application on top of this infrastructure. Now you can see what we mean when we say infrastructure, right? So this is a really, really awesome portion of the platform that has now been made live. I am very, very excited about this. This is something that we've been waiting on for quite some time, and I think that it is now going to be able to get us a lot more attention. We're going to be able to, demo a lot more. We're going to be able to get more people actually utilizing Qortal on a regular basis. And even as of, just this morning, there are already a ton of blog posts on Qblog. There are, videos, pictures, music. Everyone's taking advantage of all of the functionality that exists already. And I just got word from Philip, who is the main dev for Qblog, that he is looking to push comments live later today. So we do not have to wait very long for comments to be a thing on Qblog, which is going to make it even more interactive and allow people to actually, make comments on other people's blog posts and then reply to those comments and so forth, right? So it will be a lot more similar to a typical quote unquote social media platform, which is going to be a lot of fun. I also yesterday posted a blog post explaining how you can set up the nav bar on your Q blog. So, for people who are not aware of this, the builder editor on Qblog, you can actually add what's called a nav bar, which will allow you to have a drop down menu on the top left of your blog and able to link to any of the blog posts that you make, right? So you can actually take this and use the builder editor to build a essentially a website out of your Q blog posts and put navigation on it and everything, right? So it's really cool, guys. And as we continue to add functionality to this, I could see Qblog being a thing that will basically allow you to build whatever you can think of and use it in whatever fashion you like on top of Qortal. We've already got a couple people who are using it to promote and sell their products. That will be a lot easier in the future as well. Quick is making something aware to me. Just a second. It's important that people understand that Qblog is not a part of the UI itself. Right, exactly. Yes, yes, I will definitely go over that. It's an app that you download from QDN, similar to the websites. Anyone can make another app like that. As more functionality is added, people will be able to make highly custom apps with all sorts of features. Yes, this is exactly the case. It is very, very cool. And as people really start to grasp this, I think that there will be, a lot more that's popping up on QDN, right? So yeah, the UI has nothing to do with Qblog. It is literally published on QDN as a Q app, right? The only thing the UI had to do was build the functionality to allow for the pop-ups to authenticate for certain calls to be made and authentication with the user and stuff like that, right? But the app itself is not part of Qortal, right? It's not part of Qortal. It's actually built as a app on top of Qortal. And the coolest part about this is one of the really cool parts, right? There's so many different cool parts about all of this. But since the Q app is actually hosted on QDN completely, right? You can access it either through a gateway node or through any Qortal node, and it's exactly the same. So you don't have to. What I mean by this is with a lot of other so-called decentralized applications, they have the user interface that's actually built on a typical web server, and a lot of the other stuff is then pulled from the chain or whatever, but the interface itself requires a typical web server. Now on Qortal, that's not the case. You publish an app on QDN, it will look exactly the same on every node that accesses it or every gateway that accesses it, right? So, say someone had a presence on the internet and they wanted to move the hosting of that presence over to QDN. They could easily do that, making sure that the presence was compatible at first, which a lot of people already have compatible presences. They don't even really realize it. And some of them have built those presences in a compatible fashion on purpose. People like Mike Adams, who has taken and made all of his platforms built in a static fashion. So being able to port his stuff over to Qortal will be a lot simpler than stuff that's not built that way, right? But if you do, you take it, you build it on Qortal, right? However you get it there, it doesn't really matter. Once it's built on Qortal, it's accessible and it will look exactly the same, whether it's accessed through a node or a gateway, and it's identical, right? So the entirety of the app is actually on top of QDN, not just, the back end or whatever, not just certain data. It's everything, right? So this is like one of the main things that really makes Qortal different than a lot of other so-called decentralized hosting services and whatever, right? So back in the day, one of the first ones that was created was called Steemit, right? And so they had a blog and people could post and whatever, but only the blog's data was on the chain. Everything else was just a regular website. And a lot of people have kind of copied that idea because they're back in the chain and their node setup isn't built to really do everything like Qortal is, right? So that's really something that's really important to note. And Quick, you're absolutely right that it's important to note this because it allows anyone to come in and build an application, just like it allows anyone to come in and build a website, right? And now, with the ability to do the cross name linking, which we do have, there was a bug on the linking on Qblog right now that had to do with something in the core, and that has been fixed already on the master branch, but it is not in the release yet. So certain links right now will have issues inside of Qblog, but I have seen links to websites from Qblog that work just fine. We have not yet added the linking stuff to QChat, right? So if you post a Qortal link in QChat, you can't quite click it and get to that link yet. That will be something that comes in the relatively near future. We have talked about that already in the development server. So that is something that will definitely happen soon. Well, yeah, guys, this is the beginning, basically. What I consider the beginning of what Qortal is really capable of being demonstrated to the world, right? So this is absolutely huge. I am very, very excited. I have multiple people that have been waiting for this functionality to really start introducing Qortal to their community, and I can't say I blame them to some degree because it makes sense that you want to provide something that has usable features, right? Because if you present Qortal as it was prior to this, it looks mostly like a crypto thing, right? And yeah, we have the wallets and the trade portal, and yeah, we have a chat, but there wasn't really a whole lot else. Websites, yeah, but they're very limited because of certain things. We couldn't do cross name linking or all kinds of other stuff, right? So I get it. Even though it did have a plethora of functionality, it still looked more like a crypto thing than an infrastructure platform at a glance, right? So yeah, it was absolutely huge for us to launch this yesterday. Yo, what's up, Mike? I see you have your video on. Now you're gonna be the only one with the video and the recording. Yeah, sweet.
I'm a public figure, bro.
Yeah, right.
I'm the
Cool.
face of Qortal.
Yeah, so yeah, man, we really got to start getting the word out now since we've got this Qblog is live now so people can interact with stuff in Qortal. And today the comments will be going live, so you'll be able to make comments on blog posts and so forth. So we've basically got a social media replacement already, so it's really cool. We need to get this out there. I want to get the source code for Qblog published. Like I was already talking about, I want to get that source code published so that we can demo that source code to developers and say, look, you can take this, you can clone it, and you can rebrand it and you can do whatever you want with it and publish it as a Q app that's then accessible immediately over any gateway node and any Qortal node. So it's huge, guys. Like, this is absolutely massive. And I am super stoked because this has been a hell of a ride to get here. And yeah, I am very, very happy that this functionality is now live. We are going to be getting a lot more functionality both inside of Qblog, which again is a separate app that just runs on top of Qortal. It is not part of the UI. It does not rely upon UI updates in order to update. So the dev of any Q app can update that app at any point. It's not reliant upon the UI or anything, right? So that is definitely a key point to get out there to people. Once you publish a Q app, you are the one that controls it. It's not controllable by anyone else, right? Only the person that owns that name can do anything with it. Now, in the future, we will be tying groups to that. So you'll be able to have a group that owns data, and then you'll be able to have that group with by way of group approval to actually update that data. So you can have something like, say we have a group over here and we want it so that 50% of those people say yes before an update gets pushed to the Q app, just like we do for the Qortal core, right? So that kind of thing will be possible for anyone to configure and set up with groups and group approval. But yeah, guys, this is the primary functionality of Qortal, in my opinion. This is what Qortal was built to do. This is what Qortal is really going to start demonstrating, like why it's so amazing, right? Because all of this stuff is done in the same fashion. There's no centralized components. There's nothing in the middle. There's nothing that can be stopped or hacked or taken down in any way, right? Once you publish it once, it's there indefinitely until you decide to modify it, right? So it's absolutely great, guys. You don't have to pay a fee to host your app. And I have multiple people who are looking at bringing over their presence from the internet to Qortal because they're concerned about the direction the internet's heading, right? And that is the entire point of why Qortal was built, is because we saw the direction that things were going and we wanted to have an actual solution to it. So, anyone
Yeah.
have any questions or any comments or whatever?
Hey, Jason, how's micro financing coming along on this in terms of tipping blogs and stuff?
Already possible. So we could have the tipping functionality added into it really easily. It's already there and available. So on Q Tube, he has a link that says, tip the developer or whatever. So the functionality works. It's already there. So we just have to add the button that does it, right? So it could be able to be done today, tomorrow, whenever the dev has time to do it. So I had him focus on comments first because I think the interactivity was kind of the most important thing. But after that, we can definitely, and I forgot to mention tipping, but
An-
yeah, we can
another
absolutely add it. Yeah.
another cool feature too, devs, is tipping the commenters, which would be cool,
Yep.
So I know that's like what Steam was trying to really do, and some of these other platforms like Cent, remember, which was an Ethereum app. They were trying to monetize all sorts of aspects of the, you know, interactions going on. Of course, like you were saying with Steam, that was a delegated proof of stake, so it had a lot of issues there with the consensus, and then of course it didn't have the means to have the data properly shared because I remember using Steam with Alphavedic back in the day, and we would lose all this information on there, even though like the core metadata would be saved, like the videos and stuff. So this is a huge step forward, guys, in the way that Qortal is inherently handling the media. Very exciting. I did bring up on the Telegram, and I don't know if this is possible, if anyone wants to wrap their heads around this, that, the idea, because just knowing as a content creator, reason why people like centralized services, because the ability to stream content, especially on a phone, so that the waiting to download like a 2 hour podcast is going to be a little annoying to people, but I think most people will be fine with it to start because they see the importance of sovereignty in this community. But having some kind of cool technology that could like chunk that into pieces so it downloads like the first 15 minutes and starts playing while the back end is still downloading.
Yeah, we talked about it, but that functionality is not simple,
No, I know
especially
it's not. This
because
could be like
of the
really
way
cutting edge.
Qortal is built, right? Because so all of the data is encrypted and chunked. So it would have to be decrypting, building, and displaying at the same time in real time. So like that's I don't know, right? Like it's gonna take a little bit of work. We have talked about it, and it could definitely happen, but not 100% sure on when that will happen. But I mean, honestly, for me to get a 2 hour video like the one I published the other day does not take long. And then once it does play, it will play perfectly no matter what, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if did you have issues like having it take a while or something, or?
No, I'm just considering like somebody on a light note on a phone, on a subway, on a, on
Yeah,
your
right.
wireless.
I mean, ultimately in the future too, we will have the ability to directly connect from one node to another, regardless of whether they have port forwarding or not.
Yeah,
Right. So that will make it so that the data gets to you a lot more easily. Right. Because right now, the main concern is with the data transfer anyway, that you have to either be connected directly to the node that has the data, or within a certain amount of hops of that
mhm,
node has to have the data, and they have to have relay enabled, right?
yeah,
So it's not ideal as far as how the data gets to the node right now. But yeah, the more peers you have right now is going to make a big difference. And the more super nodes we have on the network with the more peers that they can have, the better, for now. But the plan is to have what's called a firewall hole punch method,
mhm,
that you will be able to connect directly from one node to another. So, say you don't have this node as your peer, but that node has the data that you want. You'll be able to establish a tunnel between
yeah.
those two and grab the data from that node directly. So, that will make
That's
things a lot
amazing.
easier. As far as streaming goes, I have some ideas like for streaming like this kind of data, like what we're doing here now.
Yeah.
I have an idea for that based off of this serverless WebRTC application that I've used in the past and that was hosted on Quora before. But I'm not 100% sure if this idea will work. I think it will, but we're not quite to that point and really figuring that stuff out yet. We're just getting this out the way that it is, adding as much functionality as we can with the existing stuff that we have now, and then we'll start adding new functionality and start making other types of improvements on that. But I think even now, like, unless the video is really huge, it doesn't take long to get to the node. I haven't really seen a case where it took longer than maybe like 3-4 minutes, which yeah is a little bit of time, but it's not that bad. Yes, I have a decent internet connection, but it's really reliance more upon the nodes that you're getting the data from.
Yeah.
If their internet connection is great or not, right? At this point, and well, when we have the mesh and all kinds of other stuff, it's going to be a lot easier.
That's
But
great.
yeah, I mean, everything has been working quite well, to be
I'm very
honest.
impressed. Qblog
Yeah,
is legit. I posted
yeah,
our first post today, right now on from Alpha Vedic on the end of COVID. That'll be a true test, and maybe a proving ground for the legitimacy of this. We all know we need this, but Alex, Zach, and I are putting out the end of COVID summit, which we're even like considering possibly having that domain shut down. I mean, we're going right at the core of
right.
the beast with this. So I definitely want to have a sort of parallel site on Qortal of that as a backup, which you, Jason, and I have talked about. But the other thing that's really alarming, I think, to a lot of people right now, Jason, is this sort of AI takeover of the
Right.
World Wide Web, and the deep fake stuff, and like people not knowing what's human, what's real. Could you talk to a little bit about that, in terms of how QDN sort of helps regulate that a little bit by having real people running nodes? I mean, I know you could still will potentially have the AI coming in running nodes, but what's your theory on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, to get so the real time data between people and like websites and stuff like that, and cookies and stuff like that doesn't
Mhm,
exist, right? So none of
mhm,
that kind of data can be grabbed or used at all because it doesn't exist. So the only thing that like an AI could potentially do, I guess, would be like they'd have to go and download everything that's on QDN and then go through it, right? So they
mhm,
could still, I guess, do that, but I mean, as far as like actually interacting with people through Qortal, they could, I guess, but it would have to be
mhm,
built for it. I mean, right now we're relatively unknown, so I don't think there are any AI like issues to worry about right now, on Qortal. But as we progress in the future, that anything's possible, right? So I don't know, like as far as fighting that, how we would really go about that. But yeah, we need to make sure that when we are bringing new people on board, especially new mentors, right, that we do as much as we can to verify that those people are real people, right? And it becoming harder and harder day by day because, as you said, the deep fake, you can literally pretend to be a celebrity and have a video with you talking as that celebrity, and it will work, right? So anybody who has already done videos like me or you, they could easily pretend to be us with that deep fake stuff, right? So I don't know. It's getting harder and harder to do that, right? So what I like to do is just get a feel for the person, ask them some questions, see the way that they reply to things, see if they have, any sort of spelling errors or any sort of thing where an AI probably wouldn't have that, and just kind of pay a lot of attention before I give them a key to start minting, right? But ultimately, like, it just comes down to the community, right? We have to be vigilant ourselves with who we allow to become a minter as a sponsorship enabled account. And that's really why sponsorship was built, right? It was supposed to have a human interactive component. It was not ever supposed to be completely automated. And that's why I don't like the term DAO being applied to Qortal, because it's not a totally automated thing. It was supposed to be human interaction that controls a lot of it, right? So yeah, I mean,
Well,
it comes down to us ultimately.
with Q apps, we could develop, and I know we've had channels on Q chat about sponsorship, but we could develop a community handshake protocol app where literally you sponsor somebody by somebody else who's already sponsored, handshaking them in public. Like kind of thing where like you literally go meet somebody and meet them in person and then like sit down with them, kind of like how people do the Bitcoin trading, in person. I forgot the name of that service, but you literally go meet someone with Bitcoin and with cash. That developing that sort of app on Q app where we're bringing it back to humanity and literally doing not a digital handshake but a physical handshake, and then like having that on video in a way that is so that if that person handshaking them isn't already at level 5 or whatever to sponsor, it goes up as a little video onto the app, and
That's
then
where the sponsorship board could play a part. Yeah, I wanted to
yeah.
have a sponsorship board where the new people wanting to be sponsored could put up a card with some basic information. Then you can click it, and it have a whole web page. They could have a video, they could have pictures, they could
Mhm.
have whatever they wanted, and explain like why they like the project, why they want to be a mentor, so forth, and then make it easier for people to get on board and so forth. But that could absolutely be used for something like that as well. And I like that idea. That goes back to kind of the karma ship stuff, wherein
Yeah.
real human interaction or being within a certain radius of this event or whatever. I like that stuff for sure, and that could definitely be incorporated into the way that we do sponsorships now and so forth. So yeah, I like that for sure. Does anybody have questions or comments or anything? Ultimately, guys, this is the beginning as far as
It's
I'm
about
concerned.
spreading the word. It's about spreading the word. I know Jason is. You're planning to go on some interviews, and I might be as well. I'm definitely, as I'm promoting the end of COVID, we have Qortal as a sponsor, and looking to go on some big shows, even potentially like Alex Jones, RT, etc. Start promoting this and in some kind of perilous, dangerous waters, but we don't care. Like if we could get this on CNN, we will. It would probably be bad press, but then I'm going to parlay Qortal into everything we're talking about as a solution. So definitely going to be using this as a vehicle to promote Qortal. And guys, if we can start like crowdsourcing marketing funds, like how cool would it be? Because one thing we're doing for end of COVID is we're literally having planes flying banners over the beaches on Memorial Day weekend, down in Orange County, in LA, Miami, etc. Like that's the end of covid.com. But imagine if we were able to fund that for Qortal.org, new internet, like
Yeah, I
decentralized.
thought about doing billboards and stuff too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. Once so now like we're finally to the point where I'm like ready to start pushing harder, right? Because before this it was like all about establishing the infrastructure and making sure that all of the base level components were stable and good and working and all of that, right? But now we've got the ability for developers to come in and build applications. They can obviously build websites already, but now they can build applications with interactive interactivity, they can build marketplaces, they can build their shops and all of that, right? And you can even use Qblog to build a shop in the future too, because we'll add all of that functionality to Qblog, so you can build a blog post that functions as a shop page, right? So there's a lot that's coming in the near future that'll make all of this really, really simple. Ultimately, Qblog is looking at becoming a drag and drop web builder. So you'll be able to just build your presence really easily, make it have whatever functionality you want, and publish it, right? So that's what we're looking at there. There's a question here. What is the incentive of level 5 to make new mentors? Do you mean incentive? So yeah, the incentive is growing the network. There is no further incentive. It is literally built to be idealistic, right? So you, as a sponsor, do not get anything for sponsoring a new mentor other than the joy of adding a new mentor into the system, right? You should be sponsoring people that you want to assist. You want them to have the ability to mint because they are going to get a benefit from that, and they're going to help us in the future by, voting and so forth. Go ahead, Mike.
It's part of like the giving economy model where you give and then you give more. It comes back to you because it's a network effect. So while you're minting and earning coin, with every new minter, yes, your minting goes down a tiny fraction because you're now sharing it with the bigger pot. But now it's adding more value because you're having more people potentially using it. And now, as we have Q apps launching, where we'll actually have e-commerce and marketplaces, and etc., this is the idea. Like, if you have 20 people just collecting coin all day in a tiny marketplace, that's like collecting fake money. It's nothing, right? It has no value. The way we create value is through the network effect. So the more legitimate people we have minting, the more it's being spread, then the more, and also it's deflationary in that way, right? Because it's spreading out across the value across more humans that have the actual coin. So it's deflating it, and it's creating more value through the network effect while people now have it to spend on things like down the line buying products from Alpha Vedic on the new, Q marketplace, etc.
And
So
utility. It's always been about utility, guys. Like, ever since the very beginning of the crypto space, it was always about who could build more utility. That kind of got lost in the nonsense that's been happening recently. And now it's not really about utility anymore. Now it's just about who has more rich people on their platform or whatever. Like, that's the only reason that I've ever heard for people that use Ethereum. I ask them why are you using Ethereum? They say, oh, that's where the liquidity is, right? So basically, the only reason they're using Ethereum at all is because that's where the rich people are throwing money into the Ethereum ecosystem, right? So it's really not about we use it because it's better. It's about we use it because that's where we make money, right? And so that is really like, yes, you'll be able to make money on Quartal 2, but the whole idea is to have a base level platform with more utility and that's built correctly, and that you can do everything that you want to do in a totally sovereign fashion without any intermediary or middleman involved in any aspect of it, right? And people ask me too about why don't we add liquidity pools to the trade portal? And I'm like, yeah, okay, but every single liquidity pool that I've seen and looked at how they were built, they all rely upon an additional fee that's added to the trade that then gets distributed to the liquidity pool as like incentive to have the liquidity pool with your funds or whatever, right? So we don't do that, guys. Like, we don't have any additional fee that's added to the trade. Now, of course, that could happen if the community wanted to vote that in or whatever, but I just don't think that's the best way to go about this, right? Like, I could see a method for a liquidity pool to be built wherein it comes from a portion of the block reward, and then that gets distributed to those who are helping to provide liquidity on the various markets. But again, I've mentioned this multiple times. We are not going to be making any more big decisions without community input. And the only way that we can get community input in the correct way is to utilize the Qortal voting system. So until the Qortal voting system is live, which it's very close at this point, guys, like, we're not that far away from it. So as soon as it goes live, then we will be able to have community input. Then we will be able to start talking about, bigger modifications and so forth. So remember too, that this platform was built to be able to evolve. A lot of other blockchains are kind of stuck to one thing or another, right? Like if they're proof of work, they're kind of stuck to that algo because they have a whole network of like ASIC machines that were built specifically to run that algo and so forth. So they can't really change that algo. Now, Qortal does not have anything like that. And because we can do a hard fork really easily by way of an automatic update, and everyone's node just takes the update and moves forward, we can make even larger changes on Qortal very easily, right? So all of these things are able to evolve. Everything that you see on Qortal is not set in stone. The only things that we are, we want to make sure that everything stays legitimate, right? So there's always going to be the final verification from the developers, making sure that it's not going to, cause any sort of damage to the overall idea of Qortal, or that it's actually able to be built as written. But that's about it. Everyone is able to submit proposals for changes of any kind that they would like to see on Qortal, right? So keep that in mind, guys. The DDoS problem. Okay, so let me read these other questions here. Do you have issues making more minters? Sounds cool, but people gets lazy. Um, I don't really know what you mean by issues making more minters. I mean, I have not seen there being an issue with more minters getting into the system. So, and I've not seen an issue wherein somebody wanted to be a minter and they were not able to become one. So
Plus,
I
we're
don't
making
see
it much easier to start minting
yeah,
with the automated downloading of the UI and core together and packaging all
right.
that. So it's going to
Yeah.
be a lot easier for grandma to start minting.
For sure, yeah. So the auto install that we have now in the Qortal UI makes the setup process, which was basically the only hard part of Qortal, right, is getting it set up, right, and especially the Qortal core, because on Mac and Linux you had to use the terminal and so forth. So it wasn't straightforward. It wasn't as straightforward as it could be. So with that, we've made it a lot easier, and I think that that's going to make a large difference overall. So let's see. Qortal is the free software philosophy molding blockchain. How about the DDoS problem? Okay, so DDoS, it doesn't really affect Qortal. The only way that they could do a DDoS attack that would actually cause any issues would be if they knew, for one, which node was publishing certain data, and it was before that node published the data, they knew about it, right? Somehow. And when that node publishes the data and before that data gets to any of the available super nodes that immediately grab the data, or anyone who follows that name or anything else, right? They DDoS attack that node specifically. That would be basically the only way that that could be an issue, right? Yeah, so DDoS not a problem. Like they would have to DDoS a lot of the network in order for it to really cause any sort of noticeable issue. Yes, they could individually DDoS attack certain IP addresses or certain nodes, but how long can they keep that up? And it would only keep that one specific node or one specific IP address offline for however long, right? And it may not even like I've not even really seen a problem with that at all, with anyone complaining about their node not being able to get connections or something other than like a bug that we had that we fixed or whatever. So I don't think DDoS attacks are really an issue at all. Like we'll see obviously in the future if that ever becomes a problem, but I can't really see that becoming an issue at all because of the way that Qortal is built, right? Like everything is actually truly decentralized. We have multiple data supernodes, which just synchronize all of the data on QDN. Now, of course, they will have to either massively increase their storage space or, start selecting, picking and choosing who they follow as things get to the point where it's too large for a single node to do that. But right now, we do have quite a few of those on the network. So as soon as something gets published, that data is distributed. So yeah, I'm not concerned about DDoS. Let's see. Can you rebuild Pirate on Qortal with some infinite and onset algo, bigger blocks, and minting? Yes. So not now, but yes, the idea in the future is to allow anyone to launch a new chain from within Qortal that can either run with or without Qortal. Of course, they're probably going to want to keep Qortal running too, because they'll have, the interactivity with everything involved on Qortal and so forth. But you could create your own copy of Qortal essentially with its own minting rules and launch that, right? So yes, that will be a thing in the future. As far as pirate and it being totally anonymous, we will be building an anonymous transaction type for Qortal in the future. That anonymous transaction type will probably be one wherein you basically burn coins and then you can spend those burned coins in different amounts. And if we do it that way, and the what's called the null address is the one that ends up sending the coin, then it's absolutely 100% anonymous. So we don't even have to worry about like the anon set and all of that, right? So it's literally like there's no way that you can tell who sent the coin. Same way that the right now the ATs, when you send a message to an AT to get a refund or whatever, it comes from the null account, right? So that's how I see it working, where you can burn any number of coin, but then you get kept a credit in that number of coin that you can then send in an anonymous fashion, right, with an anonymous transaction type. And so with that, it will be sent from the null account to anyone. So there's really no way to prove who did that. Now, of course, if there's only like two accounts or whatever that have put coin into this anonymous method, then you could figure maybe it's one of those three accounts or whatever, right? But as it grows, it just becomes infinitely more and more anonymous. So yeah, like I think that's absolutely possible in the future to do that. We do plan on building the anonymous transaction type. We also plan on building the Dandelion transaction submission methodology so that we will no longer be able to figure out which node actually submitted a transaction. We also will be encrypting the node connection and synchronization data so that you will have everything completely encrypted. So all of those things are going to happen in the future. We're not super focused on that right now. But yeah, so let's see. Since acquiring new developers is critical to Q apps replacing web apps, I think the community would benefit by having a separate meeting each week that helps new developers learn the technology. This would also be a breeding ground for new ideas for Q apps. How does the community feel about this? Yes, okay, that's absolutely great. But the problem is we don't really have a ton of extra developer time right now. So yeah, I would love to be able to put something like that together, but I would not be able to ask the developers to dedicate even more time on top of what they're already doing, which is a ton more than I can even afford to pay for, right? So it's yeah, guys, we will hopefully be able to do things like that in the future. Absolutely. We are also looking at hopefully in the future being able to build basically a developer school for lack of a better word, right? But just basically a way for developers to come in and learn. I would love to be able to have like a class for developers on Qortal in the future, right? Until then, what we can do is if there's a developer who's actually a developer and they want to come in and learn, they can absolutely get in touch with me. I'll see if I can get them into the Qortal development server where they can actually bounce ideas off of the Qortal devs and learn things and so forth. So, yeah, we'll get further along as we have more available time. As the as the Qortal price increases, this will help with this as well because we'll be able to do more and structure more. Right now, I can't afford to put up more servers and put more time into than I already am, which is basically all of my time. So we will be able to do this more in the future as we get more resources and so forth. Question, Croetic, have you found any more documentation or resources on the Reticulum network protocol? Okay, so yeah, the Reticulum network has a pretty significant documentation available online. I have only glanced through it. I have set up a Reticulum node before, but this was before I formatted my main work laptop that I had it set on, and I have not set it back up again. But I have not dug any deeper into that lately. We've been, obviously pretty busy with other stuff that we're doing. And I am also planning on doing a couple other larger interviews and things like that. And I've been talking with those people. And so, yeah, it's not quite yet, right? I also want to do some more talking with the hardware dev that I mentioned in the other videos that was saying he had a longer range technology that would allow the reticulum protocol to connect. So I have not gotten any further with that as of this point. Let's see. No, I mean it's not really mixing, not mixing at all actually. So it's more like burning and then being able to send different amounts from that instead of, uh it's not mixing. So mixing is like where everyone throws their transactions into a pool and then different amounts of transactions come out of that. It's not like that. It's literally just burning the coin and then getting a credit that you can use that is coming from that burned coin, but it's not like a mixing thing because we don't have to worry about change. So on Qortal, there's no such thing as a change address. So it makes it a lot easier to deal with this burn anonymous method than it would be if we did have change addresses, because that then leads back to the person, right? So we can actually do this a lot more easily than a chain that does not, um, or that a chain that does have change addresses. But I need to get a glass of water, guys, so I will be right back. Feel free to chat amongst yourselves or anyone else that wants to mention anything, do that. I will be right back in a minute.
So while Credic's doing that, I'm wondering, has anyone else started building any cool Q apps? And if so, what's your experience? What's happening?
Okay, I heard someone say something. What did you say?
Oh, I asked if anyone had started building any cool new Q apps. And if so, what was their experience?
Right? Yeah. So I can tell you the experience of the dev who built Qblog, if you like. He told me straight up that it was 10 times easier to build a Q app than it would be to build a regular web application. Now, this is probably going to be the experience for anyone building Q apps because they do not have to worry about setting up any sort of infrastructure. They don't have to worry about setting up any servers or anything like that. They don't have to have even a test server environment. They don't have to deal with any sort of authentication or a database involved with that. They can literally just start building their app and their functionality. And so it is a whole hell of a lot easier than building a regular web application. So I think that once people kind of really start understanding that, developers are going to be building on Qortal just because it's better and easier and more secure by default. So they don't need to mess around with trying to do all this IT stuff before they actually start just writing the code, right? So it's going to be really interesting, I think, because it's actually, according to the developers who have been building on it so far, much easier than building a regular web application, right? And they don't have to focus on any of the other nonsense that's not involved when you're building it on Qortal. And you immediately, when you publish an app, make it available to everyone, right? So it's really cool, guys. Not only that, like you could actually immediately make it available to the internet through a public gateway or even a private gateway if you want to, right? So you could have your app that's on whatever domain and turn that domain into a private gateway that just serves your specific name, and you're golden. Like, you don't have to worry about anything. You have your app, it's published, it's good. You don't have to worry about any sort of like firewalls or any sort of intrusion prevention systems or anything like that. So the dev can just do what the dev does and develop an app. They don't have to worry about any of the IT shit or anything else that goes along with it. So it's so awesome, guys. Like, once the devs really start seeing this, they're going to be like, wow, yeah, I need to start building here, right? And I have been talking to a couple others that have development teams, and they want to start building Q apps, and they want to port their presence over to Qortal. So that, I'm talking with them about it. They're going to get their nodes set up today, I think, and they're going to get started. So it's going to be cool. Yeah. Any other comments?
So it sounds like if you have a gateway, you can get people using Q apps without even realizing that that's what they're doing.
Right. Yeah. The
Because you
only
could,
thing that, yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So you'd have them make an account in the fashion people are used to, but it would actually be a Qortal account, right?
Right. You could totally do that. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
And what we're gonna do actually is with gateway auth, we're gonna make it so that an account gets created whenever you access through a gateway. Then you'll be able to just download that account and use it, right? So a dev could totally take that account that gets created, add it into their own system that manages it, and then there you go, right? So yeah, that manages the authentication, so forth. So yeah, it's unbelievable what you can do, man. It's it's literally crazy. So yeah. Yep.
That sounds like an excellent marketing opportunity to me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, don't bother making an account. You already use these services. We set you up. Just do the thing.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it's really cool, guys, and it's going to open all kinds of doors that didn't exist before for developers, and it's going to make their lives so much easier. They're never going to have to worry about whether their app is online or not, because it's always going to be online. And they're never going to have to worry about dealing with like preventing attacks or like if any sort of downtime or anything like that. There's no such thing. Like, once a Q app is published, there is no such thing as downtime. It's not down. It's never down. It's just up, right? So yeah, once it's published, it's available, and that's it. So yeah, it's absolutely awesome, guys. I think once this really starts spreading around and developers start actually looking at it, it's going to be a no-brainer for them to start building stuff on top of Qortal. Because yeah, it's immediately available from the internet because I've got a public gateway running right now. And that public gateway is redundant. It has 2 nodes behind it. And what I'm going to do is just keep adding more nodes behind it. So it'll be a redundant gateway with 5 nodes or whatever in the future. So I can even do updates on 4 out of 5 of those nodes at the same time, and it still won't be offline. It'll still be accessible, right? And it's so easy to do that because everything keeps in sync automatically with Qortal. So you don't even have to worry about doing like load balancing and keeping everything in sync with each other and so forth in order to have a redundant gateway node, right? So it makes the job of IT people like me much easier too. So it's just it's incredible, guys. Like, it's totally badass. So yeah. I can't wait to see all the new Q apps that get built. I know someone wants to build a marketplace, a specific type of marketplace. I know that is potentially going to be happening. I know that multiple people are talking about porting over their video platforms or their overall social media presence to Qortal, which can basically already be done now with Qblog, right? So, yeah, once we get the commenting functionality, which should be today, which is pretty awesome. Once we get that, then we basically have a social media replacement, right? Like, you can make posts, you can comment on those posts. What else do people do on social media, right? Like, that's basically it. And you can do everything, the videos and pictures and music and all of it, right? And then we're going to have the ability to do files too. So you'll be able to have downloads and whatever you want on there, right? So it's awesome. And next step too is once we can do that and easily publish that kind of data, I plan to make it so that all of the like binaries and like releases and stuff like that are available on QDN and then accessible and accessed through the gateway. So the gateway that's redundant now, and then we'll have a couple other people set up gateways and then teach them how to set up redundant ones if they want to. So then we'll have, if you're downloading from the internet, you just jump through a Qortal gateway to grab the information from QDN, and then you know that that information is verified and hashed and stored on the chain and so forth. So it's just much better, right? It's like always having data that's been verified. So as long as you're grabbing it from the correct name, you're good. And so we'll make all of the stuff that has to be downloaded right now from the internet, make it all available over QDN. And then when we get a little bit further, the way that it'll work is you'll install the UI. The UI will set up a light node by default. So the light node will then give you access to everything that's on QDN by default. So then you won't have to download anything from the internet or even over a gateway if you don't want to, other than that very first installation, right? The very first installation, you install that, then you have access to QDN through a light node. You have access to everything. So immediately you start it up, you can use it without like syncing the chain or downloading a bootstrap or any of that. Then if you want to, you can turn your node into a full node. So if you want to start minting or whatever, turn your node into a full node. It downloads a 2 GB file or less because the archive v2 method has been made live. And then that will, take 3.5 gigs of space or whatever total on your hard drive to run a full node, guys. Like, this is massive. Like, the way that we have built everything focused around being completely decentralized is huge. Like, that is like the primary thing that differentiates Qortal from everything else, right? Most of these other decentralized things, they do not focus on having everyone run a node. And if you don't do that, then you're going to have inevitably nodes that get ending up being centralized into the hands of service providers and exchanges and stuff like that, right? So the majority of people that run Bitcoin full nodes, the majority of people that run Ethereum full nodes, especially Ethereum full nodes, because guys, if you want to run an Ethereum full node, do you realize the system requirements for something like that? It's absolutely crazy. Then if you can manage to spend $50,000 or whatever it is to get enough coins to actually become a validator, it's even more crazy. They want something like 128 gigs of RAM or like some nonsense. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it was some number like that. It's insane, guys. Like, I cannot believe that they actually expect that to be a thing. It's obvious that they only want enterprises and companies running full nodes and being validators. It's just blatantly obvious. They're not even really trying to hide it at all. So it's crazy, guys. Like, to think that these things were built and called decentralized and claimed to be community focused is just a joke. It's a total joke. So yeah, I think the methodology behind everything that Qortal does becoming apparent to everyone over time is going to be really, really big. Like, people are finally going to have it click in their head, and they're going to be like, oh wow, now I see why Qortal focused on making sure that their full node database was not growing uncontrollably and all of these things, right? So it's a big thing, guys. Like, we have made sure that this is not only able to be run by anyone, but that it's able to continue to get more decentralized over time and allow everyone to keep participating and not having to buy more hardware and not having to like put a ton of effort and money into continuing to make sure that they can run a full node. And then not only that, I've seen it plenty of times in the past where at some point a coin will get to like where they have a hard fork, right? And if you don't update within a certain period of time and swap your coins over to the new hard fork chain or whatever, that you lose your everything, right? So we have made it so that that isn't a thing either. If you keep your node running and have auto updates enabled, your node will just keep updating and staying with the main chain no matter what, whether we do a hard fork or not. So it's just, we designed it so that it will be feasible and usable and easy to stay 100% decentralized and 100% distributed and staying that way for the foreseeable future. So I think that, those kinds of things are very, very important for people to understand. But yeah, let's see what else other people are saying here. Yeah. Alpha's saying in the next 3 months we'll have a completely portable version of Qortal. Yes, that is absolutely going to take place. Thanks to Alpha for that one. Let's see. Somehow websites seem to be currently not working properly on Qortal. Anything but the home pages either have styles gone or a 404. No, I have never seen that. Can you show me what you're talking about? Which website? Any of them? Let me see. I have definitely not seen that happen. So,
So any question to me? I'm same here.
what's that?
Alpha.
Oh, hey, how's it going?
My name Olaf. Yeah. I say any question to me? I'm same here. You can ask me. I will make my mic on and answer.
Nice. We've got the developer of the UI, the main developer here for anybody who has questions on anything related to that. If you guys have any questions, let him know. He's here to answer them for you. I'm going to check out the website thing he's talking about because I have definitely not seen that happen. So I want to make sure that's not a thing. But yeah, anyone else feel free to speak up, guys. Like we're here for everyone to talk, not just me. So but do you know which website you were having an issue with? Or is it literally all of them? Because I think this must be something on your side, but let me check. Let's see, websites.
I know
Oh,
some websites have a problem with special characters. They don't display right, but we are on it.
yeah, let's see. I'm building mine. I haven't happened to you. What with which one?
Mm, Something like same on the Q apps. There's some the Russian character which is not complete right displayed, and
Oh
then
yeah, yeah. That
it can't display. But I'm on the
oh
fix already.
spyware.neocities.
Uh, but I fixed this on already. I'm on it to fix
Okay.
that is display correct.
Sweet. Okay, so yeah, that we're taking care of that, guys. Let me see. I'll look at that site that you're talking about there quick. Spyware. I mean, it's also like a lot of this could be an issue with the website itself, right? Like we don't control what people publish, so it could be an issue not on our side, but on the website's side too. So keep that in mind. Let's see, mirrors. Yeah, I mean the mirrors site. Let's see, Vivaldi. I don't know. I'm on that website right now. It's working for me. Articles. I mean, yeah. Okay, so it looks like the links to the articles and stuff that they've published. I don't know, man. I don't. I mean, I'd have to look at the website's files to see if they published it correctly, right? I don't know. Um,
Yeah, I have noticed that the Pirate Chain website, pirate.black, the images, lots of them aren't loading properly.
yeah,
But
it's
as you said, whether it's
yeah.
them or whether it's you, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the time I've seen it to where if they're taking and they're using what's called HTT rack, which is a way to static websites, like it pulls the data, makes them into a static website. I have seen HTT rack do that where the file is actually there, but it doesn't load. And I'm not 100% sure what is going on with that, but it only happens with HTT rack. Now, if I take and I make a static copy of a site with SiteSucker from Mac, the Mac static tool, create it with that, it works fine. So I really don't know what is going on with the HTT rack stuff, but I think that's probably what's causing it. Um, I can take and edit the source code a little bit and point it to the file in a slightly different way and it works. So I don't know. HTTRack seems to do weird stuff. That's what I've noticed. So yeah, most of these issues I'm guessing are probably on the website side. It's most likely not something Qortal related. It's something in the code of the website, but we can verify that on our side too to make sure that there's nothing that we're doing. But yeah, if you guys want to get more information on like whether there's an error coming up or whatever on a website inside of Qortal, what you can do is just access the website or access the Qortal UI through a browser and open the browser console. Then you can see what error it's throwing and so forth and figure out like what's going on. And a lot of the time it's the website itself. It's not Qortal. So but yeah, like I said, the HTTP rack has done weird stuff to me many times where the images, they seem to be there, but they're just not loading correctly. But if I go and I modify the code a little bit, I don't remember exactly what I did. It was a while ago, but basically just pointed to the image in a slightly different way without some of the stuff that HTTP rack put, then it worked fine. So I don't know whether it's like just something that HTTP rack is doing that is bothering Qortal specifically or what, but I think it was happening to me whether I accessed it through Qortal or not. So even if I just opened the HTML file in a browser, it was still doing the same thing. So I think it's something that HTTP Rack is doing. Every site that I have built myself for Qortal has not had this problem. So I don't know. What? Yeah. What site are you having an issue with? Quick, because like, which one? Your directory site or yeah, question, can you get viruses from Qortal websites? I mean, it depends on what you're talking about. Like, so if you are talking about like a virus that's built into the website and then relays data to the internet, no, because we don't allow that to happen. Like, there's no data that can be relayed anywhere to the internet, right? So no, that's not a thing. But if you download a virus file and then install it on your computer, yes, that can happen. Obviously, like it's just a distribution network, right? So if you download a virus and install that virus, then yes, you can get a virus from Qortal. It just, it depends on what people publish, right? Like, you still have to be careful, especially on Windows, right? Where, don't just install random things, right? But yeah, like as far as stuff that communicates to the internet, no, you can't. Like, there's no communicating to the internet from Qortal, right? So that's not a thing. Yeah. But yeah, installing a separate app, yeah, that could definitely give you a virus for sure if you download one and install it yourself. Yeah. So you're saying this is a new thing, quick, that like websites are all of a sudden not working? My site is working just fine. Let's see. Community initiatives, the one I built. I don't know if you can find that on Qortal right now. You'll have to look and see if somebody publishes some sort of marketplace like that. I mean, yeah. What do you mean? Like, I have links and stuff on it that go to other pages, but yeah, I guess it's all in one folder. But yeah, you're saying like having
Can you
another
guys hear
site
me?
underneath that? Yeah. Yep, I can hear you.
We all can hear you.
Do you have a question or? Okay. Okay, I guess we'll have to look into seeing if if I'll build another site with another site under it and see if that has an issue, I guess. What is the name of the site that you're talking about there, quick, that you put together, didn't use HTTP rack? But anyways, I think I'll probably stop the recording unless we've got other stuff to talk about, because we're now just like getting into seeing if there's an issue with the websites or something. Mobile fabric. Okay. Mobile. So yeah, I'm gonna stop the recording. I'll still stay around here for a while. I don't want to keep the recording going on forever while we're just looking into potential like issues or whatever. So, if anyone else has anything that they would like to have on the recording, now's the time to talk about that. If not, then I'm gonna stop the recording, and we'll still stick around for a little bit. And if anyone has any other
Any
questions or
questions?
whatever.
If any questions to the OE, I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. We will be doing this every week. So if you'd
One,
like to show up,
yeah, 1 more hour, I'm here.
nice. All right. I'm stopping the recording. Thanks, guys. This is a really exciting time for the project, and I'm very happy to see what comes from this point on. And thank you all for showing up, and we will see you next week. All right. Let me see.